So this is my first time back in Israel since COVID, so I can't tell you on a personal level how happy I am to be able to travel. As Shlomi said recently, I've started traveling again. But to be back in Israel and to come here to Yalla and see a packed house is amazing. So welcome to you all to Yalla. And I think Shlomi captured it well. My Hebrew's not so good, but I got the gist of it. It's all about the software and it's about the developers. We're going to talk about something that he had on the timeline, which is, it's not quite as in the future as maybe he had it, because I like to think a lot of it is today. And it's about the IoT devices, the Internet of Things, right? I remember it was a few years ago, I interviewed someone and they said, you know what? Take out all your phones, take out all your computers. Just real IoT devices, industrial devices, IoT devices. There's more of them than there are people in the world. At the time, I think it was 6 billion. I think we're closer to 7 billion people. There's more than that in devices. And where these devices are, they're in critical places, right? We think about things like pacemakers in your heart that are connected. Actually, you go to any hospital, every IV pump, everything there. How many IP numbers? How many IPs are assigned in a hospital? How many IPs are in your house? I live with my wife and sometimes 2 children when they're here. We have 40 or 50 IP numbers in my house. Who needs IP? If you would have asked me that 20 years ago, I'd say you're crazy. But this is how many IPs there are. And you know, IP6 versus 4, and this is why we needed them. But there's a new twist to the IoT problem, and that is the edge, right? Everybody here, your father, your mother knows the cloud. Everybody puts everything in the cloud. It's not a secret anymore. But the cloud isn't just the place where we're going to store stuff, where we're going to compute. Compute is going to move to the edge. Not that the cloud is going away, but it'll have to share with the edge. And developing software that's smart enough to know what you do on the edge, what you do to the cloud, and how you share that, and what you do on device will determine the winners and losers of this new age of IoT and edge and so forth. And security. Security is probably the single biggest, most important thing in computing today, but certainly in IoT and the edge, right? There are many IoT. 15 years ago, I was selling security to the Department of Interior, U.S. Geological Survey in the U.S. They have sensors on the bottom of every ocean measuring. They say they're measuring earthquakes. They're probably tracking Russian subs. They have sensors on top of Mount Everest, right, sensing that. None of these had any security built into them. Anybody could have hacked into them. What did it take to hack into these devices? What kind of havoc can they wreak? This is kind of stuff what gets me excited. But not only me excited, I have an amazing panel that we're going to talk about this with today, and let me introduce you to them. So first of all, I want to introduce you to from F5, and if I mispronounce their names, I apologize. Or Saha from F5, or is a senior security consultant, and welcome. Good. Wanted to make sure we had the right amount of chairs. Next up, we have Roman Shaposhnik. Roman is the co-founder and CHO of Zedeta, also a board member at Apache Foundation, Linux Foundation, and he's working in edge software right now. Next, we have Natalie Shuva, from Sternum. She's CEO and co-founder. And then last but not least, my friend Fred. I think Fred needs no introduction here. But Fred Simon, co-founder of JFrog. Okay, let's get started. So I made some bold numbers out there and how important it is. Roman, I'm going to ask you to start off. Is it really that important?
I think it is. I feel like, that is the last frontier of computing and therefore a development, that we have to build, IoT and edge. And as you said, the total number of devices, the total, addressable market, if you will, is just staggering.
So there's never a last frontier in computing. It's like Star Trek. They'll always make a sequel.
There you go.
But it is the next frontier in computing, and I agree with you. what do you, well, or I know you have very passionate feelings about this. Why don't you kick us off, start with where do you think we need to focus?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for having me, first of all,
Oh, my pleasure.
and welcome. So I think that we speak all the time about the top 10 of something. We used to talk about OWASP top 10, and we fixed all the vulnerabilities in the web sector a long time ago. And then there was the API security and IoT security, and we always reinvent the same stuff. So I feel that from one hand, we need all the really great products and industry that solve the issues that exist nowadays. But from the other hand, we have to change our view. We have to secure from scratch. So we have the developers right now that sometimes they know security and sometimes they don't. But I think about the future developers, and we need to teach them to security awareness from the first line of their code. I think it's extremely important. This is my passion, to take all the baby developers and just help them to think about security, to give them my view as a security researcher, to think like a hacker sometimes. So this is my passion, and I think how to really do it to help the community. Yeah.
Very good. Natalie, I wanted to ask you, so security is primary. So, or, I think Roman's laid out that this is the next frontier. We have a lot to work on here. What about you? What do you see as the issue of the day when it comes to IoT and edge?
Yeah, sure. So actually, 4 years ago, when we talked about security on the edge, on device, people were laughing at us. They were like, those devices will never accept security. I don't care if my refrigerator get hacked, those sorts of things. And we were like, no, it's our pacemakers, it's our critical infrastructure. You don't want that to get hacked. We can protect it on the cloud because they are running on the edge. You can't fix all vulnerabilities because patching and updating is so ridiculously costly. In Shlomi's slides, it was 250 hours, I think, for remediation. So we were talking about on-device security. And when you talk about on-device security, you actually talk about developer security because CISOs cannot deploy on-device security on their industrial control systems or their security cameras. They just can't. They don't have any access. You have access. Developers are building the code. And when you think about advanced prevention mechanism, about preventing exploitations, about what CrowdStrike is doing for our computers and cloud, I think this is the next frontier in terms of IoT security because we have to bring, and I really want to reflect what Or just said, we can't really build security for the IoT the same way we are building security for other devices. They're just different. They have low resources, diversified systems, but we can inspire from advanced techniques of how to prevent on the edge, how to prevent 0 days, how to prevent in real time so you don't have to patch and bring that into the IoT. And I actually think the key is developers because as you build your software, this is where you can deploy solutions that protect your software in real time and go through scanning to prevention, to remediation, to real-time analytics on what happens. And the time to embed these kind of things is while you develop and update your devices.
Fred?
Yeah, I like to go back to the origin of why do we need software in our fridge? Why do we need actually running code so close to our devices and so close to our life? And one example for me that proved the point is some update on the Tesla that happened. The actual microcontroller that controls the motor and the three-phase motor of your car is a piece of code. And it was updated during the night. And so from you went to sleep and you wake up in the morning and your car is 5% more acceleration and 10% more range. You didn't do anything, you went to sleep. So the power of actual good code being updated very close to all the things that we are using, and especially when we talk about medical devices and critical things like that, the only way to get the value out of it is to be updated, is to get new software that adapt to the life that change around us, to the environment that they are on, and to the different things that they are connected to. And I think this is one of the main barriers that we are facing and for security, is that most of the people that came from IoT, they came from the hardware, from the silicon. And so they give the silicon and they give the software and they said, that's my package, that's my medical devices. You don't update it. And I think it's more than stupid, it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous not to put, right from the beginning, the fact that the software on the device, the software on the edge need to be updated. And if you bring security to the developer, and if you tell the developer, I need to bring security, the first thing he will tell you, I need to be able to update my device. If I cannot update it, I cannot bring security. The security will change all the time. And so we are seeing the change today, and that's why we are here, is to bring this change in the IoT world, that the only way to get value from our device, the only way to secure our device, and the only way to really change and bring so many billion devices is to continuously update them and not to be afraid of updating them. It needs to be part of how we think and what we do.
I would like to maybe not challenge, but at least, make an observation here. We all get excited about Tesla, right? Tesla is super exciting. And yet, there is one of the top 3 car manufacturers in the world for which a software update still means a USB stick at the dealership. So my question is why? That car company is selling like crazy, right? They have no problem selling their cars. So on one hand, as geeks, we all get excited about, what's happening with Tesla. On the other hand, there's this huge, just humongous enterprise that is still running around, with USB sticks. So this gap in skills and knowledge in, how they build their product, not us, because they're building the product. How do we bridge it? How do we make more car companies like Tesla? That's, my first observation.
So, look, I remember in 2012, I thought everyone was doing Devops. They weren't. They still aren't, as much as we have all these people here. Yes, there's always, it's the early adopters, early mainstream, late mainstream laggards. We're probably in somewhere early adopters. We haven't quite crossed the chasm, I believe, when it comes to EV technology and stuff. But make no mistake, IoT technology has been around for years. Industrial controls, Natalie, as you mentioned. And the problem is, excuse me, many of those devices are headless, limited Linux kernels. They weren't made updatable. That's the issue, right? A concept of liquid software, what a concept, right? There was no concept of liquid software in IoT devices. They were made to run the same basic control over and over and over. No one thought about security. And that's the issue. Tesla is a different story. It's a different animal.
No, well, I mean, we have to be very compassionate from those old guys. And at the end, people say Tesla is a computer that happens to have wheels. And when we talk to all the transportation industry, and I have also a Renault Electric, and I never use the entertainment system inside. I'm always upset with whatever software. It's developed by French people, so. And at the end of the day, it's going to impact their sale, and they are already seeing it. It makes a difference. The customer experience of a well-updated cars or a well-updated device or whatever you interact with has a better experience. And it takes time for everybody to experience it and to see the difference. And yeah, we have to be compassionate about those guys that used to do engineering, mechanical engineering, hardware engineering and all this stuff, and suddenly they said, no, you have to do DevOps, you have to update every day, you have to do security. The whole Renault executive environment, it is just, they're agile, and even agile for them, that's the kind of change that we are talking about. So we have to be compassionate about them, teach them, and show them, and hopefully all the tools that are developed today will help them do the transformation.
Basil?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we're talking about updating, but most of the companies building IoT devices today, they put updating and OTA into the devices. So I think there is a different situation between legacy devices, ones that were deployed like 5, 7, 10 years ago, and devices that are being built today and get to the market quicker and get into the market with updating capabilities, which is very important, as you mentioned, with Tesla. In some cases, it's not about additional features, it's actually about critical features, the ability to be updatable. So definitely very important, but I think it's only one step forward. And if we think about the IT industry or the web industry, you started with network security and network solutions, then you went to PCs that can be updatable, then you were able to fix issues, not just security issues, issues in general. Then you moved into on-device capabilities of preventing attacks, of securing the device in real time, of deploying antiviruses, but then EDRs and EPPs onto your Windows and Linux, and even our clouds are protected with native cloud security. So I think, as you mentioned, updating is like the key milestone as a next step, but it's only the beginning of the journey that IoT devices has to go through to get into the standards that we are seeing around us. And for some devices, it's a nice feature to be updatable, like a car. But for other devices, it's not a feature. It's the essence of the device. It has to be updatable, otherwise it has no place in the world.
Yeah, it starts with a technical solution to be able to update. But if the company, like Renault, doesn't know how to create rapidly new version and deploy it securely and trust the flow, that's, they are freaking scared. They're going to put a piece of code out there that's going to be, I have all the technology to do over-the-air update, but people take more time to change than the device.
Yeah, I want to add to what you already said. Like, there are two groups of products. One group is a group that are capable of really support the security features. They can. The technology enable it. And there are many security holes, like I found, that are pretty easy to fix, and the device supports the fix, so it's not an issue. So first of all, we can do a lot with these products, but there are also other products, and their resources are pretty limited. And if you go to the developers, they tell you, oh, I can't, my resource is really small. But I want to challenge these developers. Those are genius who deal with the embedded system, to think about not the next IoT product, but to think about the next IoT platform, to think about, not to say, I can't do it, just to think about how to do it, how to support the security feature, how to make the device strong enough to do it. And another thing, when I joined, I was a software developer for many years, and when I changed my path to the security sector, I thought that I'm just I just have fun. Like, I don't contribute at all to the world. I just like to play with the security holes and hack. But I've learned that if you find CVEs, you raise the awareness, the security awareness. So I think that there are not many CVEs around this IoT because it's complicated to develop it, but it's also complicated to hack it. You have to build the old system, the firmware, the gateway, sometimes the web interface, everything. So it's complicated to build it, and then you can't hack it. You're not a script kid here. You have to be a really serious hacker. So if there will be more budget to security teams to challenge those IoT devices, we'll raise the awareness, and then I think that the embedded system developers will find the solutions.
Actually, on that note, my wish, if I had a magic wand, I basically would have just turned all of the embedded developers into cloud-native developers. Because I think that's the only way forward, right, for me. And yes, I agree, there are a lot of devices with like super constrained environments, right, like super small microcontrollers. But again, to me, the key word in edge computing is computing. And if you're talking about super small constrained microcontroller, there's not really typically much interesting computing that you can do with it, right? So to me, if you are doing computing, you really should be doing it in the edge, sort of cloud native way. And my thesis is, what we're still missing is a platform like Kubernetes that would be applicable to the edge, all the way to the edge. My thesis is that we need to see something like, what happened with mobile when Android showed up. Because all of a sudden, remember, I'm actually old enough to remember, bajillion of different, cell phones, right? I had my Nokia, and I had my flip, Ericsson phone, right? They were all incompatible and completely insecure, and, it was horrible. And then Android showed up. Now, of course, iOS also showed up, but, more on the open side. Android showed up, and all of a sudden, all of it got unified. We basically had that liquid wave of software, coming into the mobile because all of a sudden, it was easy to assume that the platform is that. It was the same with the cloud. So the cloud, the public cloud showed up, sort of the Amazon showed the way. We all assumed that's how the public cloud is going to look like. And then Kubernetes showed up, and now the deal is done. And I still feel that we're missing that, platform, that ultimate, final platform for the edge. So to me, that is the missing gap. And speaking of compassion, that is the kind of compassion I want to show to the embedded developers. Just give it to them.
I don't know where we are in this journey, but it's way more than Kubernetes. to have, so the latency of a device, so those devices, they don't have much resources and things like that. If they can get access to actual compute in very low latency, very close to them, that is then connected, so you have this, we have to recreate some kind of a web or a web protocol with compute on the edge, compute on the device, compute in the big backend, big database. So this whole architecture and this whole system, so some company are doing it with full big integration. It's way more than Android or Kubernetes or all this kind of different system. It's a different way of working. I think microservices helped us a little bit start to think like that, but we have more to go and way more to learn about this. I'm not sure we are ready for a platform yet, but yeah, it will come.
So I don't think it's just a platform, right? We were talking here. I think when we talk, first of all, I find it incredibly ironic that we talk about cloud native on the edge. But it's not so ironic because what we're talking about is a new integrated world of computing, where some things make sense to do in the cloud, some things will make sense to do on the edge, some things will make sense to do on device. The key is, how are they all connected, right? 5G, we haven't discussed that, but 5G will be the network of the edge. It will be the network of IoT for a lot of the newer stuff, because now you're going to, with static 5G, you no longer have to have Wi-Fi issues, which are a whole nother security problem, right? It changes the equation. So when we say a Kubernetes for the edge, an orchestrator for the edge, yes, I think it has to be an orchestrator for this whole new way we look at things. But let me bring humans into it, because we should never forget humans, right? Because we do all of these things for humanity. And when I talk about humans, I talk about
Sure about
developers too. We've gotten into a thing in DevOps where let the developers take care of it. We got a problem with security, the developers need to, well, Shlomi had a number up here, 250 hours or something spent. The developers are the highest paid people in our organizations. How much can we throw on them security-wise? And now, but wait, there's more. We're going to give you IoT security to worry about and edge security. At what point does the developer say enough already? And how do we get out from under that?
Yeah.
Natalie?
I think, yeah, so as Al mentioned earlier, they don't have resources, so they're saying I cannot enable that, and they're right. Like, we can talk about future platforms, but today's platform is running on real-time operating systems and embedded Linux. They can't really deploy anything that can help them with the security. I think that the best way to help developers secure all of this, because I really think it's too much. Honestly, they just want to build their software, and they want to build amazing products, and they don't want to think about people trying to hack their software, and they shouldn't. This is why I think there are companies building security products for the IoT, and I'm not talking about Sternum, obviously I am, but not just Sternum. There are companies building products to help developers do their job better, not just for security, the entire DevOps, the entire cloud native, even Kubernetes. They are all being built to make developers' job easier, focus on what they really want to focus on. And we are going the same path for security for the IoT. They don't need to shape it, build it, design it. They just need to use the innovative product. And as Shlomi mentioned, this is time for innovation. And I think it's our responsibility, all of us, to make sure that we identify the best solutions, even if they are new solutions, not that adoptable yet, not Amazon or Microsoft providing them, but small startups, and try to use them to make the job automated, easier, and get secure products out there without investing developers' hours, just their mindset of accepting new solutions, testing them, evaluating them, and see if they answer their expectations.
Yeah, developers are not having enough children.
Look, we only have maybe a minute and a half left. I want that, Roman, you had brought up an important item, though, and I want to spend our last minute on that. If there's not enough money, profit into this, it's a very nice conversation, but who cares? Where's the money? Show me the money here.
Yeah, that's the question. Again, I have a edge orchestration company of my own, and I constantly think about this question, right? Because the investment in the IoT and edge has been going for what, 10, 15 years by now? Actually, by the way, I'm kind of surprised that we don't have any venture capitalists on this panel, because I think they have a thing or two to say about, burnt investment in that area. But honestly, we haven't really had a killer app emerge. Like, maybe it's Tesla, maybe it's Nest, but we actually haven't had a killer app for the edge yet. And I think, we're still missing it. Because again, all of the other computing, applications ended up having a killer app emerging very quickly, and then everything else coalesced around it. For the edge, we still don't have it, so that's my biggest problem. And I think until that emerges in a big way, we're going to deal with a super fragmented market, where the best we can hope for is build enough common open source building blocks and let somebody else, productize it in a vertical manner. But until we have that killer app, there will not be a product that will make into a unicorn. That's my field.
I would love to talk about this with you all day. We can, but not here on stage, because I misread the thing. We don't have a minute and a half. We're over a minute and a half. But listen, I hope I gave each of you a chance to espouse your position. Yalla to everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.